All right, Dragon Ball fans, welcome back. You know we love diving into the nitty-gritty here, and today
Okay.
we are tackling a question that has probably caused,
Oh, tell me about it.
endless debates online. Android power levels. Specifically, we're looking at Android 20. In that initial form, right when he shows up, could he take down future Trunks?
Yeah, if we're talking about when Trunks first pops on the scene, it's a huge question. I mean, let's just look at the forums. Fans are going crazy. Some people are absolutely convinced that with that whole energy absorption thing, he's a total powerhouse.
Totally. And on the other side, you
Yeah.
got Team Trunks. They're like, Trunks would crush him, no problem.
Yeah.
And honestly, both sides have some pretty good points, gotta say.
Yeah, it's all about the evidence.
We've got forum posts for days, people breaking it down, and some folks even have these crazy detailed power level lists. I'm talking about you, A Hill one.
Right. It's hardcore. But see, this is what I find so fascinating about this whole thing. It forces us to go back to the source, the manga,
Absolutely. And
Yeah.
that is what this deep dive is all about. No more speculation, no more what ifs. We're sticking to the original story, the chapters where this all went down. Think of it like a Dragon Ball study session,
I like it.
but more fun, obviously.
Way more fun. But every good study session needs context, right? So before we jump into the fight itself, let's rewind a bit. Everyone remembers Dr. Jiro, right? Evil genius, used to run the Red Ribbon Army.
Oh, yeah. The guys Goku basically destroyed way back when he was a kid, right? I don't imagine Jiro was walking that off anytime soon.
No way. That messed him up, fueled this whole obsession with revenge. And the manga makes it clear this wasn't just some random bad guy thing. This was personal. He wanted Goku to suffer.
So picture the Z Fighters getting that warning from Trunks, knowing this ticking time bomb is out there. I mean, the manga shows them training for 3 years straight. They knew it was coming and were preparing for war.
And even after all that, after Piccolo merges with Kami, gets crazy strong, there's this underlying tension. You can practically feel it in those panels. Piccolo knows, on some level, this threat is bigger than they imagine.
Okay, expert foreshadowing right there.
Uh-huh.
But it also tells us they knew the stakes. They weren't messing around.
And here's the thing. None of them, not even Trunks, actually knew what these androids looked like. They had this vague idea, but they'd never seen 19 or 20 before.
Oh, wow. So they really were going in blind. Okay, so picture this. The Z Fighters, all geared up, waiting for this terrifying enemy. And then, bam, Yamcha gets taken out, instantly.
Yeah, and it's easy to just be like, oh, poor Yamcha again, right?
Right, classic Yamcha.
But here's the thing. At this point, Yamcha, he wasn't weak.
Exactly. He'd been training with the best of them.
Right. Even the androids are like, whoa, this guy's got some energy. They even say that. It's in there. So it's like our first hint that these androids, they're not messing around.
It's like that feeling when you walk into a fight thinking it's going to be easy, and then, bam! Not saying Yamcha should have been ready to take on androids or anything.
Right.
But still, it's a wake-up call.
Exactly. Never underestimate your opponent.
But speaking of underestimating, we got to talk about Goku's heart virus. Oh, right. Because just as things are getting good, here comes Goku, your Super Saiyan, for the first time since Frieza. I bet some people listening can still picture that moment, the energy in that scene. So much hype.
Oh, iconic moment for sure. But we can't forget, Goku's fighting a losing battle from the inside out.
Yeah, that heart virus was no joke.
No joke at all. And you can kind of tell, even when he's powering up, something's not right.
Yeah, there's that underlying sense of,
Exactly. It's subtle, but it's there. And remember, Piccolo and Gohan, they can sense it too. They even talk about it, how Goku's not at full power. So right away, it makes you wonder, how much did that affect the fight?
Right. Was 19 really that strong, or was Goku already at a disadvantage? It's a huge question.
Huge. And just as things are looking bad for Goku, here comes Vegeta, ready to steal the show.
Oh yeah, cue the dramatic entrance music. You know, Vegeta was living for this moment.
Oh, absolutely.
He's been training, hearing these rumors about unstoppable androids, and he's probably thinking, finally, a challenge worthy of me.
Right. Gotta love Vegeta. And when he gets there, what does he say? He sees these androids after they took down Goku, and he's like, you guys aren't as tough as everyone says.
So typical.
Yeah.
But is he serious or just being Vegeta?
That's the million Zini question right there.
Yeah.
It's Vegeta, so he's never going to back down, right?
Never.
But he's also not freaking out. He's acknowledging their power, but he's not intimidated.
And he just dismantles 19.
Right. Faster, stronger, figures out the whole energy absorption thing.
Turns it against him.
Brutal, but also brilliant. Vegeta lets 19 take his energy just to prove a point, and then bam, arms off.
Savage. Yeah. But that's where things get really interesting for our deep dive, right? Because, yeah, Vegeta wins, but it kind of raises more questions than answers. So we've got 19 down, Vegeta standing strong. You'd think that would settle the debate, right?
Yeah, you'd think so.
But the forums, let me tell you, they are blowing up. Was Vegeta holding back? Were the androids weaker than everyone thought? It's a real head-scratcher.
And this is where things get really interesting because we got to stick to the facts, right? What does the manga actually tell us?
Exactly. So put on your detective hats, everybody, because we're about to break it down.
All right, so first remember Piccolo's reaction. He's watching these fights, and he's got that look on his face like he's putting the pieces together.
Oh, yeah, that classic Piccolo thinking face.
And he says, and I'm paraphrasing here, either these androids aren't as strong as we thought, or we've gotten way stronger than we realized.
Okay, so not exactly a clear answer there.
Not at all. It could go either way.
Right.
And that's why we can't forget the other big piece of evidence here, Vegeta's own words. Remember how fired up he was, convinced he'd finally found a challenge?
Oh, yeah, totally. Talking about worthy opponents and all that.
And then he just shrugs off 19's energy absorption like it's nothing special.
So full of himself, that Vegeta.
Well, and that brings us to a really interesting point from the Big Man 226 over on the forums. They argue that Vegeta wasn't saying 19 was weak, just less impressive than expected, you know?
So maybe it was just Vegeta's ego talking.
Maybe. Or maybe he was genuinely underwhelmed.
It's tough to say. Because if Vegeta, with all that Saiyan pride, wasn't impressed, that definitely means something.
It really does. And we got to factor in Trunks. The guy came from a future where these androids were a nightmare, right? And he was confident he could handle them. So much to think about.
It's a lot. So where do we even begin with all this? What are the key takeaways?
Well, based on everything we've looked at, I'd say 19 and 20. They were probably weaker than some fans might think, especially compared to 17 and 18. Those guys were on a whole other level.
Right. They still took down Goku, even if he wasn't at 100%.
Exactly. Let's not forget that. They were dangerous. But this whole deep dive has shown us just how important context is. We can't just look at power levels or fights in isolation. We got to consider everything. Motivations, those little hints the manga gives us, it's all connected.
Speaking of hints, got to leave everyone with something to think about, right? So let's say, hypothetically, 20 was weaker than Trunks back then. Why does Piccolo insist on fighting him alone later on?
Right, what's with that? Was it a strategic move, knowing how 20's powers worked? Or did Piccolo, even after all his training, still underestimate himself?
Ooh, now that's a question. And on that note, another deep dive successfully navigated. Thanks for joining us, everybody. Keep those debates going, and remember, always question, always analyze, and most importantly, always keep it locked right here for more Dragon Ball Deep Dives.